Welcome to NavTalk Series 3. I'm Simon Prowse, your host. NavTalk is a podcast where we discuss a broad range of topics which will be inspirational and at times fun. NavTalk, brought to you by the Navwealth Financial Group, helping you reach your destination in life on purpose. Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of NavTalk. In today's NavTalk, we're once again turning things on its head, like we've been doing the last few episodes, and I'm actually being interviewed by one of our team here, Jami. Hi, Jami.
Hi, Simon.
So today's NavTalk is all about business planning and really trying to segue a little bit into life and life planning and how a business plan can actually make a business successful and drive a business rather than just being an ordinary business. So, Jami, I'll leave it over to you to start your questioning.
Thanks, Simon. I think it's following in your footsteps a little bit at the moment, a few hosts. Anyway, so to kick it off, planning is obviously the key topic of today. Not only business, but we kind of want to delve into a bit of personal planning and how that can actually help your professional realms as well. So to kick off the discussion, can you please share your thoughts on the importance of planning in general and what has inspired you in your recent focus on this area?
Look, Jami, planning, what is planning? Well, really, if you want to achieve something, generally speaking, you've got to plan to do it. You've got to have that vision in your mind or that picture or what you want to achieve. So think of it like setting a world record in high jump at the Olympics. You're planning to jump over a pole that is set at a height, and that height is fixed, and that height is known, and that height is very definite. It's set in stone. So planning's all about that process, and without the planning to achieve a certain thing, we don't actually get it done. Pretty simple.
So it's pretty crucial in both your personal and business to pretty much plan out what you're going to be doing and what you want to achieve, I guess. And I always go back to what I've been grown up and raised to do is set my goals every year over New Year's and Christmas and really stick to them and kind of map out my 10-year goal and where I want to be. So I guess in terms of planning, that's business as well.
Yeah, very true, Jami. And you mentioned a couple of things there. Firstly, let's go to these New Year's resolutions. And most of the time, they're things that we want to do or achieve or cut out of our lives or whatever. We do it at midnight on a once a year. And we do it after we've had a couple of drinks, and most people have forgotten that resolution by the following day or the following week. So planning is very important, but also following through on that plan. And everything in lives that we do in our lives is about planning and guidance and setting a goal. I mean, how do we get from A to B? We plan to get there. Then we say, how are we going to get there? Okay, well, we're going to drive. We're going to get a train. We're going to do whatever form of transport to get there, and then we work out a time to get there because we're normally on a schedule. So that's all about planning. I mean, it's everything we do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just talk about the basics of effective planning. What are some fundamental principles that you've picked up on when you've been obviously deep diving into your planning studies that you've done over the last few months?
Look, it's probably more than a few months. It's probably got to do with grey hair and being involved in businesses for so many years. Essentially, when we start with a plan, there's so many factors to it. But the first and foremost is it's got to be simple. When I started my business career, a business plan, those business plans that I saw in those early days were equivalent to a phone book. They were huge. And trying to find any of the key messages or any of the key plans, if you like, in that business plan was almost impossible. In fact, most of these plans that I saw in those days they were written, they probably took forever to set up, and then someone would get it and they'd throw it on their top shelf and you'd never look at it again. So a business plan's got to be simple. And a number of readings over the years has shown the best business plans to be 1 to 2 pages long. Just key, succinct messages, if you like, or goals and objectives of a business. And it's not just goals and objectives, it's all encompassing, but keep it simple and The simpler it is, the easier it is for everyone and the business to follow.
So when you're talking about simple, do you want to give us a little breakdown on the 5 main factors, or 6 or 7, whatever it is, the main factors that you would focus on? So you have your page set up, just do dot points under. What are the main focus points?
Yeah, look, I'll let the creative side come up with how it looks and feels. And in terms of a business plan and what should be in it and what shouldn't be, there are so many schools of thought. What's right or wrong? It's not really a right or wrong. It's what's going to work for you and or your business and the business rules that you set. So most importantly, it's your rules, it's your business, your plan, okay? From there, I tend to look at some key areas. Firstly, what the vision is. And the vision is, if you like, what are those core values or the core focuses? The 10-year target. Now, we'll circle back around to that 10-year target because it sounds extraordinary. Mm-hmm. Then it's into marketing strategy, the 3-year picture, the 1-year plan, the quarterly, if you like, goals and objectives, and then overall the business issues. So if you like, I've identified approximately 8 there. You might have 5, you might have 2, but overall, if you set that plan and it is your plan and your rules, you will achieve it.
So we talk about that big 10-year plan. I know that's very daunting for some. And I know growing up, I've always been taught that you have a 1-year, a 3-year, a 5-year, and a 10-year. And you start at your 10-year and go, this is where I want to be in 10 years. And then you slowly go backwards and work out how you can then achieve that 10-year goal. I assume it's the same in business planning. And do you want to just take us through what you suggest to your clients when it comes to a business and setting out those goals and kind of breaking it down to then have small milestones to achieve that 10-year goal?
You say 10 years, Jamie, as a personal goal, which is quite amazing, actually, because the amount of people I talk to, they wouldn't even think about 10 years into the future. And we're in business, like I said, for a long, slow burn. So if you think about it, a 10-year, if you like, horizon is one that sort of has enough meat in it, or length of tenure to really set the bar high and really allow the business to mature around that 10 years. And we liken that 10-year goal to what we call a BHAG, or a big, hairy, audacious goal. So set it hard and set it high, because if you don't, you're never going to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously working back. So you have your big 10-year goal, and then how would you then get your smaller goals to then achieve that? Would you then break down that bigger goal and work out different strategies and how you're going to get there? Or
Exactly. I mean, I working with my clients, use a 10, 3, and 1 year goal setting agenda. The 10 being the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious that we've talked about. The 3 years going, okay, well, we've got a bit of time to burn, but 3 years is a bit of a horizon that we can sort of say, okay, between now and then, in order to get that 10 year, this is what we've got to get in those 3 years. And you'll be quite surprised, because 3 years, if you're talking about a business and systems and operations, it can take 3 years to get that working in a direction you want. For example, all your processes and procedures, a review of those and documenting them could take up to 3 years. It might take you a year to find a key employee. So 3 years is a good horizon when we're going for 10. And then 1 year is a sprint, okay? And that sprint is, okay, we've got our target, we've got our goals over the longer period. Now, what have we got to do this year to make sure we're in the right trajectory for the 3 and 10 years?
Yeah, great. And I love how you just touched on getting the right employee, and we're going to circle back to that in a second, but I just really want to emphasize on the importance of writing your goals and revisiting them. And how often do you recommend revisiting them and working out, are we on track? Are we not on track? What can we do to get back on track? What do you suggest to your clients?
Yeah, the business plan, we've done the big hairy, and then we've broken that down into our 1 year sprint, if you like, and then that extrapolates into budgets. And I know it sounds boring, and I'm being an accountant, but let's set a budget. And what's that budget say? Okay, well, over the next 12 months, and it's generally from a starting point, and I like to think, our financial year is a pretty sane starting point from an Australian point of view, but that's when all our numbers and our reporting periods circle back to, but you could have a different starting point. But I'd tend to think the 12 months, and then you're saying, okay, for the next 12 months, every month, what do we need to do? All right. So you are reporting it monthly, actual V budget, for example, or goals and objectives for the month and measuring them. And then every quarter, we review those and we have a deeper dive into them and find where, if you like, things are falling astray or not working, and we address them. So really quarterly, and people work in quarterly cycles really well, and that's from my experience as well. Monthly is probably a bit too tight to actually change direction and get projects done and so forth, but quarterly is really, really, a good time frame. So you have 4 a year, and then you're reflecting on that full year in the annual one, and then you're resetting again.
God, I tell you what, that's a mouthful. That actually just puts into perspective why you guys have so many meetings. From an employee standpoint of view, we always see the directors at meetings, going places, having these big bomb meetings, and it's just like, what on earth can you guys discuss in these times and meetings? So that's just crazy how much it is, how much effort and time and consideration you need to put into these goals and really planning them. So I just want to circle back to what you said about getting the right team members. So we're talking about businesses and organizations. Could you just discuss the importance of aligning people with the roles that suit their strengths to then help the company excel and achieve these goals?
Yeah, that's a challenge for just about every business. I think last year or the year before, I can't recall, I did a bit of a talk, and it was a common theme amongst every single person and business I spoke to is, where's the talent gone? And it was after COVID, it seemed to be no people around. So people thing is huge. Without the people, you can pretty well, you don't have a successful organisation. So the first about people is slow to hire, quick to fire. It is so important to get it right. And if the person's not right, it ain't worth you or ain't worth theirs or your time in trying to make them right. So really slow, understand the business, understand them, have them wanting to do the job as much as you wanting them to do the job is one of the keys. There are two streams of thought. I'd like to then break down the right person into two arms, okay? Firstly, is the person right for your business, okay? So that's pretty important. So in going back to your business plan, you've got to say to yourself, what are our core values in this business? Now, every business is going to be unique, and it's driven by the management team and all the directors or owners, whatever you want to call it. But generally speaking, they're going to have core values. And those core values are part of what makes them tick and what they instill in the business. Now, if an employee doesn't share those core values, they're never going to be a good employee. So they've got to share your core values. The other bit is, now let's look at the employee and can they do what you're asking them to do? So when we look at that, we're looking at 3 key attributes. Do they get it? Do they want it? And have they got the capacity to do it? All right. So do they get the role that you're trying to employ them for? Do they understand it? Do they want it? Do they really want that role? And then have they actually got the mental and physical capacity to do that role? So we've got the values. They've got to align with your values. Otherwise, they'll never fit. And then can they do it?
That's great, Simon. And I mean, I've seen it myself. It's hard to get a job that I feel like is going to really help me excel. And then again, it's probably the same for them. And the people hiring me, they don't know if I'm going to fit that role. And aligning values is really hard. And I mean, you see it in families, let alone businesses. So I love that slow to hire, quick to fire motto. That's great. So just circling back, there's a few things that I feel overlooked when it comes to business planning. this being processes and data. Let's start off with data. Do you mind deep diving into data and the importance of data when it comes to planning?
Yeah, well, I'm an accountant, of course. I like data. It's how we measure things. Unfortunately, data is what gives you your signs, and that's how you measure. So when we talk about setting plans, we're putting a line in the sand. And what's that line in the sand mean? It's generally a target or a budget. You know, how many customers do we want? How many sales do we want? How many meetings are we going to do? They're all measurable and distinguishable. So data is all about setting those targets, but then capturing it. So the best businesses I've seen actually get data weekly. Might sound very daunting, and it probably is a bit, but with weekly data, you can quickly identify where things are happening, or you're getting the wheel wobbles, I call it. So, you know, if you're driving a car and your wheel starts wobbling, you know it's about to fall off and your car's going to stop driving. Well, think of it like that, okay? The data is identifying what wheel wobbles are happening in your business so you can quickly fix them, okay? So, you know, I'd say between a weekly and monthly is ideal to get your data. And what that data means to your business is what are those key factors that are going to identify where you're going to have wheel wobbles for your particular business. You know, in our business, in accounting, we call our data work in progress. How much time have the guys spent doing jobs? How many jobs have gone out? If you're selling widgets, it'll be how many sales did we do this month? Or it might be how many complaints do we have from customers? So whatever data it is, it's got to be meaningful to that business, and we've got to work out a process to capture it and capture it well.
And I mean, just on that as well, it's a lot, and it's very daunting when you think of it like that. So I guess the importance of this planning and looking at data is actually putting a time that side with your team to go through that data in detail every few months and every week, kind of glancing over it and then evaluating the data. Because I mean, if you're not looking at that and you're not evaluating, what are you doing? You're just kind of spinning the wheels with nowhere to go.
Oh, correct. And you said something really important there, Jami, and you said the team. You'd be surprised how many businesses I go into and the information is within the business, or the business information is kept at the highest levels and not shared. So that immediately polarizes the people within the business. We've taken a very different approach here at Navwealth, and the best businesses I see have this approach is they share everything with their team. Because your team are your resource, and they're the people who are going to be doing the selling, and they're the people who are going to be selling the vision and selling the concept of your business. So if you don't share stuff with your team, you may as well tell them to go home, because they're not going to be pulling in the same direction that you want them. Well, they could be, but it's very unlikely. So the team is critical, and sharing those key goals and objectives and that data with the team is very important.
Well, I mean, that just comes back to what you were saying before about hiring the right person. If you're not sharing, the directors aren't sharing their values and where they want to see the business going, and oversharing this information in some instances, how on earth are you ever going to align your goals with your employees and get those wheels spinning to then achieve those goals? It's just not going to happen. So I guess this leads into processes. So what are some strategies that you employ when it comes to processes, or what are some things that are overlooked?
Well, the easiest thing that's overlooked, or the most regular thing I see overlooked, is processes. Without a process, people have to work it out themselves. And without a process, you can't get scale. So firstly, if we identify a process, we build a surety around doing something within the business, core functions, if you like. There doesn't have to be too many, and it doesn't have to be a wordy, lengthy document, but something where you identify the key steps in achieving something within your business. For example, the sales cycle. It might be that the sales cycle involves, 5 or 6 steps, and if you identify those steps and build a process around those steps, then we build a surety, we build a way to manage it that's defined, and it means that anyone within the business can literally pick up and do that process or do that task by using the processes. So it makes it easy, and then we can grow scale with it.
Yeah, and just on that, we here at Navwealth, we've been really focusing on our process and procedures for this reason. And I find that it's not just type it up and it's done, the next person can get it. It's constantly being refined and looked at and thinking of ways that you can better it to then achieve those goals quicker. And just, it's crazy how much this whole planning topic comes into literally every part of the business down to the process and procedures. It just blows my mind.
I'll give you a very scary example. If you were a pilot and you were flying a plane and you had 300 people behind you who were relying on you to fly that plane and you didn't have a process, I guarantee you're not going to fly that plane very well. In fact, the plane might fall out of the sky because you've forgotten to do one thing. So think of a process like a checklist. Tick, tick, tick. You work your way down and you make sure you've got everything sorted. And then you're right, challenge the process. Take things out of the process. And it doesn't, again, have to be a lengthy document. It's step, step, step. For example, here at Navwealth, we've got a sales process, and that involves 6 steps. 1, discover. 2, strategize. 3, choose a course of action. 4, implement it. 5, review and monitor. And 6, reset. There's your process. Pretty simple.
Yeah, it's simple when you put it into those words, but not very simple when you're trying to obviously put it across the whole team. And I mean, it's like any business, you're constantly evolving and constantly changing processes and working towards a better good for, obviously, well, for us, it's our clients. So yeah, that's great. All right. So I guess we've kind of gone through all the little steps and everything that's involved in planning. So let's circle back and kind of sum everything up that we've spoken about. And how do you actually maintain this discipline and accountability? Because we're obviously talking about writing these goals and all these different little strategies and processes you need to do to then achieve your planning. So how do you stay accountable and make sure that you actually do stick to these plans?
Yeah, that's interesting because it's the easiest thing to let go. It's all about rhythm to me, and rhythm sounds boring, and repetition is a bit boring, but it builds a surety and certainty. And from all my experience over these years, people work well with a surety and certainty, and in fact, rhythm. So you're essentially making sure you set the agenda for your business and what you want to do. We've talked about it a little bit, but for example, you might say every 90 days as a leadership group, we're going to get together and we're going to review those goals and objectives for the last 90 days. We're going to look at how we're going on track for our 1-year goals and targets, and then we're going to identify areas where we can fix. We can set those into and call those, whatever you call, rocks or issues, if you like, and we set how we're going to fix those rocks or issues, and we've got 90 days to do it. And you just keep repeating and repeating. And with that comes certainty, and with that people will respond and work to the ultimate outcome that you're trying to achieve. Remember, going back to the 10 years, what's our BHAG? From our BHAG, what's our 3-year target? From our 3-year target, what's our 1-year goals and objectives? Just rhythm.
And I love how we've touched a lot on business. So I just want to put it forth to you because there's a few people probably listening that are a bit like me. We don't own a business. We're still only in our 20s. We don't really know what we're doing in our careers. How can you then apply everything we've spoken about today to your own personal life and your own professional career?
It's probably the easiest thing to not do, isn't it? We tend to be our worst enemies when it comes to this sort of thing. I interviewed a very unique gentleman some time ago, and he achieved fairly high levels in the sporting field. And if you look at sports people, they're the ones who are rhythmed, disciplined, and consistent. And they're the ones who I think we need to sort of look at and when we set the example for ourselves. They're the ones who, when it's raining, are out there training. They're the ones who, when it's freezing cold in the morning, have got their swimmers on and jumping in the water. They're just people who just, despite all and everything put in front of them, keep trying and stay dedicated to the task at hand. The other thing I can say, when you get knocked down, get back up. And life's got a funny way of knocking us down. And quite often it's knocking us down just before something brilliant happens. So get back up and keep trying, adjust, reset, and stay focused. But you may need a coach. You may need an accountability coach to help you do that. Lean on people. I think by one, writing things down, two, sharing, that's sort of forcing accountability. But maybe, you've got a regular coach or a mind group that's bounce off each other and keep you on track.
I guess that just comes back to having the correct people around you. Start to look for like-minded people, I guess, and it's the same in business. If you don't have like-minded people, you don't excel. I also loved how you touched on writing your goals down, because this is a really big thing for me personally, and I find that writing down my goals really helps me kind of stick to it. And I know that I've written down 5-year goals, and then I have my 1-year goals, and then every day or every few days I kind of reflect on my day and did I achieve any goals today? What did I do that kind of helped put me apart from everyone else my age, or what could I do better that I didn't do today? So when it comes to business, do you kind of suggest the same approach?
Exactly the same. We write it down, we review it, and we regularly look at it. And, if it's in our head, it may as well just stay in our head because it's never going to happen. So once we write it down, we've got a physical thing to start that process. And then that forms the thoughts. And then from thoughts, we turn it into actions, and then actions turn into outcomes. So that's how it works.
And then in terms of, obviously, this is all well and good if you're a business owner and you're thinking about doing all these things, but how then do you bring your team along and get them to start doing the same things? Is it teaching them the right ways to write a checklist each day or tick off different tasks? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, carry a book with you everywhere you go and write things in it. When we quite often have meetings here at Navwealth, as you've already noted, and we have a lot of meetings. In fact, we probably have more meetings than most businesses I've been involved with over the years, but that's because we share more, and those meetings allow us to share. But if you go to meetings or you are regularly reviewing things and you don't write them down, well, you're going to forget them. And let me tell you, Jami, you're 20, but when you're 50 like me, you forget more things than you remember, so you need to write it down to recall.
I already thought it was bad, but guess I got a lot coming in for me. All right, so to conclude, this has been an awesome talk. I mean, I'm taking away a lot from this, not only from a perspective of this is where I want to go in business and potentially even setting up my own business one day and different strategies I need to take in planning for that. But personally, I'm taking away a lot of this and how I can then implement it into my own personal life. So to finish up, do you want to share with us a story or a case study where this planning has significantly contributed to improvement of it and success in a business or in a personal?
Oh, I got numerous businesses and numerous situations. Let's take it to a personal one. A few years back, I was sharing the importance of planning with one of the team here, and this person was in an interesting part in their life, and their journey was sort of starting. And I say their journey was sort of starting. It's a bit weird when I say that, but they recently got married and they're about to have a child, and they were all at sea. And we sort of broke it down to its basics because they were a bit stressed about things. And the basics turned into a bit of a plan of how they're going to cope and how they're financially going to do it, and how they're going to keep their relationship well. Well, 3 years later, they're thriving, and everything that they wrote down and tried to achieve, they've achieved. So it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess the importance as well is if you are looking to do business planning and you are getting a bit stuck, come see you, I assume.
Sure. Look, There's numerous schools of thought, as I said earlier, in terms of planning and what a business plan is. With this talk, you could put a link or we could share. I've got a standard 1-page, 2-page business plan which asks you the questions and you fill it in. There's also numerous books out there. There's a great book I've recently read called Traction, and that one is a good one. I'd recommend to any aspiring business. It's got a guidebook, it's got questionnaires, it's got everything you need in order to sort of make this happen. As I said, though, there's so many schools of thought. There's so many different ways and means that people talk it, but it's all about the same thing. Get that business plan set those targets, and get out there and achieve it.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. I mean, as I said, there's a lot to take away from this talk, and I know it is very daunting when you do try literally condense everything and work out where you want to go, because for a lot of people, they don't know.
So in the final takeouts, it's all about, if you like, my recent quote, traction. And by, sticking to the basics, sticking to the steps, you gain traction and hopefully turn it into a winning formula. I mean, a business is not a small thing, as those out there in business know, and it can make or break us. So let's make us and use it to what we want it for, whether it's a financial goal or other. But make sure you use it, because don't be in business if you're not.
Well, thank you, Simon. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak to us about this today. And I hope everyone out there listening can take something away from this. And yeah, catch you next time.
Thanks for interviewing me. Thank you for listening to NavTalk. If you'd like to catch up on other episodes from this series or previous, head to our Navwealth website. Until next time.